You look at Russell Wilson. I'm going to say this to be very, very kind. Russell Wilson has taken a beating as an NFL quarterback. He has played on a Seattle Seahawks team for years with no offensive line. The injuries that Russell Wilson had to battle through a year and a half ago just really sets the pace on what he could be in Denver if this offensive line can protect him. I don't know what type of quarterback Russell Wilson will be under Nathaniel Hackett. He is not Aaron Rodgers. Who is? There is nobody in this league you can compare to Aaron Rodgers. He is a different beast of a man. Aaron Rodgers will still throw 4,000 yards this year with nobody to throw to. There is no Adams. He's got, third and fourth string wide receivers he's going to be throwing to, and he's still going to throw 4,000 yards. Russell Wilson, he had DK Metcalf. He had Tyler Lockett to throw to the last couple of years. Both guys, Pro Bowl players. Both guys amongst the league's best wide receivers. Now he's going over there to Denver. Yeah, they've got some weapons. Are those weapons going to fit with Russell Wilson? Only time will tell. To give Russell Wilson $165 million guaranteed for 5 years, it's a lot. All these young defensive players that they have on this roster, how are they going to be able to re-sign them in the next 2 or 3 years? So this is a must-win year for Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. Because when those rookie contracts are up, they have to figure out how they're going to pay these guys and who they're going to drop and who they're going to keep. Russell Wilson and a quarterback contract like that takes up 25 to 35% of your salary cap on your team. Now, Denver fans, it better be worth it. You traded a lot for a guy like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is not a young man. He's 33 years old. How many years does he have left? He's a mobile quarterback. He's become a more pocket quarterback type of player, but he's still a mobile quarterback. He likes to use his legs. He likes to move inside and out of the pocket and make throws on the run. These are the quarterbacks that don't last that long. Peyton Manning, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady. These guys were pocket quarterbacks. They did play and have long careers because they stayed in the pocket and they didn't get hit. That's the problem here. And Nathaniel Hackett, I don't know what he thinks Russell Wilson is, but if he thinks he's Aaron Rodgers and he thinks that he's going to go out and do things that Aaron Rodgers does, nobody could do that. Nobody in the league can do it. I don't want to hear Patrick Mahomes, maybe Deshaun Watson, because Aaron Rodgers has this way about him when he moves inside and out of the pocket. He runs at the right time. He's not fast, but he's not slow. He has the ability to see the field and use his arm strength to make the plays and use his legs when he needs to. There are not many quarterbacks that could do that.
Russell Wilson's always been a guy that has been more of creative for himself rather than trying to do it in a designed scheme. And that'll be interesting to see if he can adjust to that kind of thing. Because the play calling in Seattle with all those different offensive coordinators over the years was very dry and very kind of old school. Russell Wilson later in his career blossomed because he was able to do it himself. Now, yes, the wide receivers did help too, but even before DK Metcalf and Lockett were there, he was making a lot of those no-name receivers. Ricardo Lockett, Doug Baldwin, guys that weren't great skill-wise, into good receivers. And that's what elevated Russell Wilson. Kind of after Marshawn Lynch dealt with a lot of those injury issues, then he went to the Raiders after that, he really turned into a good quarterback himself. When he first came into the league, they had a decent offensive line. It was Marshawn Lynch in the defense, not really Russell Wilson. So since then, they haven't gotten the playoff wins, but they've gotten the stats. So that'll be interesting to see how that transitions now to Denver. Now, in terms of the contract itself, I agree with you. It's very long. I don't mind the per-year money. He deserves that. I'm surprised it wasn't a 3-year deal, though, because I do worry about him, one, getting hit all the time, and two, regressing as a mobile quarterback later on. Look at Cam Newton towards the end of his career, how many injuries he had after that 2017 season where he was very good for the Panthers and his MVP season in 2015, and he hasn't been the same since. Now, Russell Wilson hasn't hit that level of a low regression yet, but who says that can't come in 3 years? And that's why I think the lengthwise, I'm very concerned about that. And you're right about the defense, too. No more Vic Fangio there anymore. He helps that defense out a lot. Now they're going to have to really trust their top players, their young players, to make it happen because their team is now structured more offensively. And I'm a little concerned about Nathaniel Hackett, too, because how much did Aaron Rodgers help the play calling over there? We've seen a lot of ex-Packers coaches struggle elsewhere.
Marcus Maye gets arrested again. This time, aggravated assault. The NFL is going to look into this assault situation. He could be suspended for 5 to 6 games. Yep. He could be suspended for the whole season, depending on how bad it was. Marcus Maye should not be carrying around weapons. He should not be doing the things that he shouldn't be doing. This isn't the first time he's been in trouble. This is the second time this man has been in trouble in the last 3 years. He's a great player. The Jets obviously didn't want to re-sign him. They thought Whitehead would be a better option in that defense and a cheaper option. And I like Marcus Maye. I met Marcus Maye about 2 years ago. Very nice guy. One for the community. He's from Florida. Very nice person, but very stupid. You know that everybody's watching you. You know you're a professional football player. Why are you doing the things on and off the field? You are one of those guys that you're going to stand out everywhere you go because of who you are and what you have done in the past. Say what you want about Odell Beckham, what he's done on the field. He really hasn't done anything on and off the field. He's never been arrested. He's never done anything, lost his $500,000 ring in a lake, post up, him laying in the bed with his girlfriend and eating pizza. Yeah. Some of the stupid things that Odell Beckham has done. But even that is not as bad as assault charges, drinking and driving, DWIs, all the stupid things we've seen a lot of Jets done over the years. One Jet, tight end, sitting in Walmart playing with himself.
One Jet with a lot of drugs in his car, Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, Sheldon. And with a kid in the back.
Yeah. Marcus Maye, apparently, from the report, there was, I think, some kids in the car in that, too. That is a really bad look if that's the case. That was the same thing that happened last year with Henry Ruggs, and that makes it even worse.
Absolutely embarrassing. There is no way the NFL is not going to get involved with this. He'll get off this. There won't be anything criminal about this. It will turn into a civil thing, and it'll probably turn into a slap on the wrist. He'll do some community service and probation. He'll get off this because he's got a lot of money, and he's an NFL player, and the team will protect him.
But what he is now is also a repeat offender because of the DUI last year and now this. He's going to get suspended a bigger amount than he's going to be thinking. For a team in the Saints that's going to rely a lot on its defense this year, no more Sean Payton. Yeah, that's a big hit. You bring in Honey
6
Badger.
to 7 games, I would think. Not going to be paid. He just got a pretty decent contract by the Saints to really make this secondary one of the better secondaries in football. They lost Williams in the offseason. They added Marcus Maye. They added Honey Badger. The Saints are supposedly going to be one of those defensive teams that are going to stand out this year, that's going to keep this team afloat. Because offensively, you don't know what Jameis Winston's going to be. You don't know what Hill's going to be. You don't know what this running game's going to be. Alvin Kamara has been in trouble with the law in the offseason. Yeah. It seems like everybody on this Saints team can't be controlled.
It never was an issue for them, too, with Sean Payton there. But now a new coach there. I don't know. Something's a little fishy there with the Saints, and they were thought of as being a wild card team. That could be the thing that keeps them out of the playoffs.
As far as the Jets and the Giants are concerned, it was cut week for the Jets, and a lot of the Jets that were cut were picked up. There were more Jets, believe it or not, this year that were cut, were picked up by more NFL teams than any other team, which is crazy. Over the years, the Jets have just not drafted very well. And some of the corners and some of the DBs that they had, because they had an abundance of talent as far as secondary is concerned, with the safeties and the corners that they have with Sauce and DJ Reed and Michael Carter and Eccles. They have a ton of corners and DBs and safeties that they have on this roster. They had to drop a couple of them. So 7 different players were picked up throughout the NFL. The Jets didn't pick up anybody. They kept to their roster. Vinny Curry is out for a significant amount of time. Could be out for the season. They don't know. After they dropped Marcel Harris, they decided to pick Marcel Harris back up to replace Vinny Curry. Solomon Thomas somehow made this team. I said this on the Sports Loudmouths this week. As far as talent is concerned, if you look at the AFC East and everybody says the Buffalo Bills are far and along the best team in this division, what is the reason behind it? If you compare and contrast both teams, secondary, offensive line to defensive lines, the only thing that I believe they have significant strength over the New York Jets is the quarterback position. Josh Allen is a superstar. Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He's an elite quarterback. Zach Wilson, we don't know what he is. He's coming back from an meniscus surgery. He could be back in week 2, week 3. Who knows? But the talent is here. Joe Douglas made the right moves in the offseason. He had one of the best drafts. He brought in Laken Tomlinson, a Pro Bowl guard. You bring in a Dwayne Brown after losing Mekhi Becton for the season, for the second season in a row. A guy that was a all-pro player at one point of his career, was a Pro Bowl player last year, 5-time Pro Bowl player, probably Hall of Famer, still has at least 2 years left in the gas tank. This offensive line could be one of the best offensive lines in all of football. You added Breece Hall. You have Michael Carter. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Elijah Moore. You have Corey Davis. You have Braxton Berrios. Now you have weapons. Conklin. CJ Osuma. You drafted Ruckert. There should be no problem with this team scoring points and even playing defense. Kawan Alexander, Quentin Williams, Carl Lawson, Jermaine Johnson, Franklin Myers, Rankins. That front seven is as good as any front seven in football on paper. And don't forget C.J. Mosley. This secondary is going to be the best secondary in football in the next 2 years. Might not be this year because they're going to be figuring things out. But this secondary is going to be fun to watch with Sauce and DJ Reed and Whitehead and Joyner if he could stay healthy. Michael Carter, who had 2 interceptions in the preseason, looked like a steal by Joe Douglas in last year's draft. This team is good enough. This team could compete. They could beat Buffalo. They could surprise Buffalo and beat them one game this year. This is the first year that I can honestly say the Jets are more talented than the New England Patriots. They have more talent on their roster than New England does.
A lot more cap space, too. So if that upside plays up to it, I could definitely see that. And I think even though they have the star power, they have a lot of question marks the rest of their team. The Dolphins, too, especially on defense now, losing Brian Flores.
So, Jet fans, this could be a very exciting year. It all depends on one player and one player only. The development of Zach Wilson. All he has to do is make the plays in the open field. Short passes, use your wide receivers, use your talent around you, use your offensive line to block for you. He doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Tom Brady. He can have 215 yards and 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns and win a football game, and nobody will care what his numbers are. This is a very important year for Zach Wilson. It's a very important year for Joe Douglas. Yeah. Because if Zach Wilson fails, no matter how good this team and this roster is on paper, he's going to be out the door with the quarterback. And so will Robert Saleh. The first person out will be Joe Douglas. The second person out will be Zach Wilson. Robert Saleh might keep his job, as crazy as it may seem, because we've seen GMs come in and they decide to keep the coach. Looking at the Jets roster and where the Jets are, this could be a fun season. The Jets could win 8 or 9 games. They really could. This could be a great season to watch football if you're a Jet fan. Or it could be a sad season with all the talent that they have. They can't stay healthy, like always. Completely bombs, and he's a bombshell of what anybody thought he was going to be, coming from BYU as a superstar. Quentin Williams gets hurt and tears his ACL. I'm not jinxing him. Carl Lawson tears his Achilles again or tears his ACL and his career is over. Who knows with the New York Jets and what we have seen. Sauce Gardner gets hurt and he's out for the next year. If the Jets stay healthy this year, they will compete. They could compete with every team in their division. Speedy, your Giants made some cuts, added some players. They added Pinnock from the New York Jets, a safety that a lot of people liked. What were your thoughts with the Giants' moves and moving forward this year? What do you think of their roster right now?
Their roster still has a lot of unknowns on this team. Now, in terms of the cuts, there weren't that many surprising ones. I liked Quincy Roche last year, but a lot of depth now with the linebackers, too. Maybe there was no room for him. And the other one I'm surprised they cut, even though he's not really great, is Davis Webb, just because of an insurance policy with Tyrod Taylor getting hurt against the Jets, that you would want to have a little more of a sustainable backup quarterback than what they have. And we saw that issues last year. But the roster, again, there's a lot of new players, especially on the defensive side. The secondary definitely is concerning with the cornerback depth, losing James Bradbury, Logan Ryan, who was good in the past too, who's, I think, back with the Patriots now. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a lot of rookies or second-year players really going to have to make an impact on this team. One of them already hurt in Dane Belton, so that's not ideal. Another one on the linebackers hurt in Darian Beavers, who I really liked. And then they ended up also cutting recently Blake Martinez, getting out of that big contract, which I wasn't as mad at because he's never been able to cover in his career, and the Giants have always had this problem with middle linebackers in particular that can't cover, and you need that in today's NFL. You look at the Jets, that was a big reason they signed Kawan Alexander, and I don't mind them getting off for that. Their D-line, I think, is pretty good when it is healthy. We'll have to see when Thibodeau comes back. And Ojulari. Offensive line, really concerning in the interior. They're pretty good at the tackles, assuming Evan Neal plays to up to his potential. Receiver is already hurt. Not a good start. And the biggest thing I didn't like with either the players they brought in or the way they constructed this offseason, not great with backup running back either. Saquon Barkley's had 2 injuries in a row, and your backup running back is Matt Breida, who hasn't been good in 4 years.
There's a coach and a player that have to stand out this year if this team is going to compete and maybe win 8, 9, or even 10 games with their schedule the way it is. Dable is a very important piece to where these players and this quarterback is going to develop maybe in the future or maybe looking for a quarterback in next year's draft class. I think Dable was the best acquisition the New York Giants made last year when they decided to part ways with Judge. I think this guy is the real deal. He is the quarterback whisperer in the NFL. We've heard O'Brien, McDaniels, all these different Patriot coaches. But the real guy, the guy that I believe, ex-Patriot coach, ex-Alabama coach, I've always liked Dable.